Good morning, this is Morning Glory, 6:51 on Wednesday, July the 24th. I'm David Bull, joined by Emma Woolf this morning, looking through this morning's papers. Now, the front page of the Times this morning says long-term sick should be forced to seek work. Now, we had a conversation just before the break talking about, actually, there are lots of people on there with anxiety or stress who are not working, and this is where I think this article is pointing. Now, we are not talking about those people who have severe mental health disorders, and I just want to make that really clear. Dave in Luton, good morning to you. As someone who has lived with clinical depression and anxiety and other mental health disorders, I find your attitudes towards the issue quite disappointing. I would love to work. I've spent 25 years on psychotropic medication. I've had 3 suicide attempts. Please, can you spare a thought for people like me? We're not scroungers. We're not having a bad day. It is a tough, debilitating condition that should not be passed off as scroungers charter. And I hope I've cleared that up, because there are those people with serious mental health problems, and of course they need all the care and support they can get.
Absolutely, and we didn't use the word scroungers, and I absolutely, completely accept that there are people out there who have serious issues. And I'm simply talking about, you know, encouraging people to deal with the ups and downs of daily life. You know, when you're feeling low, when you're, you know, kind of struggling a bit. Work can actually be a really good way of getting you distracted, as you said, David, and involved in things. And absolutely, and I agree with what your message.
Now, Joe, good morning to you, Joe. Joe says, good morning, David. I work in mental health, and there are so many people being diagnosed as mentally ill when they're just having day-to-day problems. This takes the service away from those who have serious mental health issues and really do need help. So that's lovely, actually. That brings both sides of that together.
I think that's what we were saying.
Thanks ever so much for that, Joe. Keep all of those messages coming in, please. Let's talk about Labour. This is page 2 of the Times, actually.
His first big challenge, really.
Well, exactly right.
First
this is
big challenge to Keir's authority, I would say.
So Keir Starmer, just bringing you up to speed. So Keir Starmer suspended 7 members of Parliament, Labour members of Parliament, who will now sit as independents after they rebelled on the child benefits cap.
Yeah. So this was the 2-child benefit cap introduced sort of at a time of austerity. It feels very austerity measure, doesn't it? It sounds awful. George Osborne, 2015, introduced this 2-child benefit cap. It's kind of complicated. It doesn't apply. It applies to people on universal credit. It doesn't apply to if you have a second child and they turn out to be, goodness knows, twins or triplets. It doesn't apply to those children. So it isn't as simple as it sounds. Anyway, 7 of them voted with the SNP against the Labour amendment to keep this, or they voted, sorry, with the SNP amendment.
They did.
And ruthless Sir Keir Starmer has stamped his authority by suspending them 6 months without the whip.
It's a long time.
It is, but 7 out of his majority is not going to harm him at all.
He's got a walloping
I think he needed
majority.
to show he's got a walloping majority. My question is, what on earth were they doing? This is the first Labour King's speech in 14 years.
Written by the Labour government.
Written by the Labour government. They have been going along with this. Was all very clear in the manifesto. What on earth were they doing? Secondly, if it had been 30 or 40 or 50, would he have suspended them? I think it's an interesting one.
It is, absolutely. So this is John McDonnell, Richard Burgeon, Ian Byrne, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Imran Hussain, Asparna Begum and Zara Sultana. Now, remember, also, it's pressure from their own constituents, isn't it?
It is, of course it is. And... yeah, I mean, he needs to get a grip on this. I'm more interested to see how he's going to, you know, deal with things like the pay demands and unions and things like that.
Talking of pay demands, Daily Mail, page 7, the BBC gave Huw Edwards 9% rise for, wait for this, 3 months on air.
He was off for 9 months, of the year that he got this 9% pay rise.
Unwell.
Over the explicit photos controversy. That's a lot. The salaries are just staggering. I mean, we could list them, but Gary Lineker is now up to nearly 1.4 million. And you know what is really interesting? No wonder 500,000 people have cancelled paying the licence fee. They're not having it. They're not paying £169.50 a year for this nonsense. And I know they'll say, oh, salaries are paid from a different pot from the licence fee. The BBC is a national broadcaster. We are paying people like Gary Lineker 1.4 million.
So let's be really clear here. People like Gary Lineker are paid by the licence fee. 1.354 million, as you say. Zoe Ball, 950. How can you be paid nearly £1 million quid just to spin some records
to do
some
fun stuff on radio or TV?
Yeah.
And it is relevant that Huw Edwards was off, and this will be in his contract, but he was off air for 9 of those 12 months and received that whopping pay increase.
OK, so there you are, as you can see on the screen there. We've got Gary Lineker at 1.35 million. There's some interesting disparity here. So you've got Fiona Bruce, 400,000. Stephen Nolan, many people won't know who Stephen is. He's in Northern Ireland. I used to work with Stephen, actually. Yeah. He's on 405,000 for being in Northern Ireland. That, you know, one has to ask questions about that. Lauren Laverne, 400,000 thereabouts.
And then Laura Kuenssberg's paid a lot lower than I would have thought.
Me too. And you've got Amal Rajan, who I also used to work with, 314,000. And then you've got correspondents who I actually rate, like Lise Doucette. Yeah. She's on 200,000. I mean, it's still a heck of a lot of money. But here's the thing that I just wanted to clarify. It doesn't...
They love it. By the way, I know a few of these people. They love being on these lists. They love being high up.
But you see,
you'd think they would want to cover it up.
But there's a loophole here, which is if it is made as an independent production company or through BBC Studios, which is a commercial arm, you do not have to tell them how much those presenters earn.
In other words, these people are on a lot more.
So no, you've got people like Michael McIntyre, Bradley Walsh, you've got people like Tess Daly, Claudia Winkleman. They're not on there because they're paid from a different pot. I don't think that's fair.
I don't think it's honest. I don't think it's transparent. And you see why millions of people, sorry, 500,000 people are getting fed up and saying, do you know what? I don't watch the BBC and I don't want to pay the licence fee.
And I think the writing's on the wall anyway.
I really, really
and actually,
do. I don't think you can keep justifying this.
Well, and also we've seen this with Doctor Who.
Even if you're really, really good, Gary Lineker is commentating on football. I don't care who's commentating, but people say he's good. You know, I'm not sure that anybody is worth 1.4 million, and how can you justify it when the public are funding that?
Well, I would agree with that. Also, BBC News. This is page 5 of the Times, actually. Sorry about Strictly. This is Tim Davie. Yeah, but the show goes on.
Yeah, this is weird. So it's not being cancelled. Look, it's one of, I think it's the corporation's most popular show. It's been in a terrible, terrible state. It's kind of snowball effect. More and more is coming out about not only physical abuse, kind of emotional, mental abuse, really, really nasty bullying behaviour from pro dancers towards celebrities. And Tim Davie's come out and said, look, you know, we're going to maintain the highest standards. We will go ahead with the next season. It's interesting. Will this affect ratings? I mean, this is a family-friendly primetime show. It's one of the few shows where people still sit down together on a Saturday night, Friday night, whatever it is, and watch it. Will it affect ratings? The problem is the pros, the professional dancers, have become almost bigger than the celebrities. They get very, very nervous. They don't want to be paired with a rubbish celebrity. They want to be... They're making more money outside with their tours than they are on the show.
Let me counter that.
And the whole thing is imbalanced.
But it's their reputation.
It's their reputation.
But also, for my friends who are dancers, they have to be very single-minded.
Yes.
It is a great discipline.
Yes.
And I can see how they get frustrated. Aren't we just talking about woke celebrities who don't really want to do any work?
We are talking about elite athletes, as you say, who train. It's like tennis players; they train to the top of their game, absolutely. But I don't think there's any excuse for kicking or hitting someone that you're paired with in a dance studio who is trying their best. I mean, goodness knows how stressful it must be to go on Strictly. I mean, you think of John Simpson, you think of, like, Anne Widdecombe being dragged around the floor. Goodness knows.
I'm glad you brought Anne up because, oh, my goodness.
She's amazing. I absolutely adore Anne Widdecombe, but the whole the spectacle was horrific. And you imagine you're a sexy, young, fit Italian dancer and you get paired with a 60-year-old lady who's never danced before.
You leave Anne Widdecombe alone. Emma, lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Emma Woolf there reviewing this morning's papers.